A massive ship hung in space like a dark metal mountain. Its hull stretched for miles, covered in weapons that could destroy entire cities with a single blast. Inside the command center, tall alien figures moved with practiced efficiency. Their gray skin gleamed under the cold blue lights, and their forearms worked controls that humans had never imagined. Commander Vextaler stood 8 feet tall, his elongated head tilted as he studied the holographic display floating before him. The small blue planet rotated slowly, showing continents and oceans that seemed peaceful from this distance. His red eyes narrowed as he read the intelligence report. "These humans are primitives," he said to his second-in-command. "They have barely reached their own moon. Their weapons are crude chemical explosives. They fight among themselves constantly." The younger officer nodded. "The Empire expects total surrender within 3 days, Commander. 1 battle cruiser should be more than sufficient." Vextaler clicked his mandibles in what passed for laughter among his species. In over 1,000 years, the Galactic Empire had never faced serious resistance. Every species they encountered followed the same pattern. Initial defiance followed by quick surrender when faced with superior technology. The Empire ruled 847 star systems, and this small world would become number 848 on the planet below. Dr. Helen Ross stared at her computer screen in the Global Defense Initiative facility. The readings made no sense at first. The massive object approaching Earth was clearly artificial, but its size defied belief. She ran the calculations 3 times before accepting the impossible truth. "Sir, we have a problem," she said into her communication device. "A very big problem. President Jake Morrison received the call at 3 in the morning. Within an hour, he was in the emergency bunker beneath the White House, surrounded by military advisors and scientists." The main screen showed the alien vessel, now close enough for their satellites to capture clear images. "How long do we have?" Morrison asked General Paul Hayes, a veteran of 3 wars, studied the tactical displays. "Based on current trajectory, they'll reach Earth orbit in 18 hours. We're trying to establish communication, but they're not responding to any signals. What about our defenses?" Morrison asked, though he already knew the answer. "Mr. President, that ship is the size of Manhattan. Our most powerful weapons would be like throwing rocks at a tank. We need to try diplomacy." Ambassador Lisa Carter stepped forward. "I've prepared first contact protocols. We should assume they're here for peaceful purposes until proven otherwise." Dr. Ross shook her head. "The energy readings from their ship suggest weapons systems beyond our understanding. If they wanted to talk, they would have responded to our signals by now." As the debate continued, the alien ship entered Earth's orbit. For 6 hours, it remained silent, scanning the planet with instruments that registered on every detector. Humans possessed. Then, without warning, it began to fire. The first beam struck New York City. The energy weapon cut through buildings like they were made of paper. In seconds, Manhattan was gone, replaced by a crater of melted glass and twisted metal. London followed minutes later, then Tokyo, then Moscow. The attacks were precise, targeting major population centers with devastating efficiency. In the bunker, Morrison watched his world burn. "General Hayes, activate all military units. We're at war. Sir, what can we possibly do against technology like this? We fight. It's what humans do." The initial bombardment lasted 12 hours. When it ended, 50 million people were dead, and the world's major cities lay in ruins. The alien ship then began landing troops, tall, gray figures in powered armor that made them nearly invulnerable to conventional weapons, but the Empire had made their first mistake. They assumed that destroying the major cities would break human resistance. Instead, it had the opposite effect. In the ruins of Detroit, auto mechanic Tony Martinez crawled through the wreckage of his neighborhood. His family was gone, his home destroyed, but he was alive and angry. A damaged alien fighter had crashed 3 blocks away. While Empire recovery teams searched for survivors in the main crash sites, Tony approached the smaller wreckage. The alien pilot was dead, but the ship's systems were still partially functional. Tony had spent 30 years fixing complicated machinery, and while this was beyond anything he had ever seen, the basic principles were the same. He worked for 18 hours straight, using parts from abandoned cars and construction equipment. When he finally activated the jury-rigged weapon, the energy blast punched through the wall of a nearby building. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Across the planet, similar scenes played out. In the ruins of Chicago, Marine Colonel Steve Adams organized survivors into fighting units. He had lost his entire battalion in the first attack, but scattered. Groups of soldiers, police, and civilians were rallying to his makeshift command post. "We can't fight them head-on," he told his mixed group of military and civilian fighters. "But we can make them pay for every block, every building, every street." The alien ground forces had expected terrified civilians fleeing in panic. Instead, they found organized resistance that attacked from unexpected angles. Human fighters used the ruins of their cities as fortifications, turning every piece of debris into a weapon or barrier. Dr. Ross had evacuated to a hidden facility in the Rocky Mountains. Her team was small, but they had managed to save crucial equipment and data. More importantly, they had recovered fragments of alien technology from the crashed fighters. "Look at this," she said to her colleague, Dr. Alan Cooper, a former MIT professor who had joined the resistance. "Their technology is incredibly advanced, but it's also incredibly specialized. Each component has one specific function." "What does that mean for us?" Cooper asked. "It means they think in straight lines. Their entire civilization is built on predictable responses and standardized solutions. That's a weakness we can exploit." As the first week of occupation passed, the Empire's forces found themselves facing something they had never encountered. Other species had either surrendered immediately or fought conventional battles that the Empire easily won. Humans did neither. They hid in ruins and struck without warning. They used crude weapons in clever ways. They refused to follow the predicted patterns of behavior that the Empire's tactics were designed to counter. Most confusing of all, they seemed to become more determined with each defeat. Commander Vex Taylor studied the casualty reports with growing concern. His forces were taking losses at a rate that should have been impossible against primitive opponents. The humans weren't winning battles, but they weren't losing the war either. "How many ground troops have we lost?" he asked his tactical officer. 43 in the past week, sir." The humans are using improvised explosive devices, sniper attacks, and coordinated ambush. They're also adapting to our tactics faster than our models predicted. "And our equipment losses?" 12 fighters, 6 transport vehicles, and numerous weapon systems. The humans are scavenging our technology and somehow making it work with their primitive equipment. Vex Taylor felt something he hadn't experienced in decades of conquest uncertainty. "Send a message to High Command, request additional forces." The response came within hours. The Empire's leaders couldn't understand why a single battlecruiser couldn't handle one primitive planet. They denied the request for reinforcements and ordered Vex Taylor to complete the conquest within the next 10 days. As the second week began, both sides prepared for the next phase of the war. The Empire remained confident in their superior technology and military doctrine. The humans had something different: desperation, creativity, and a growing understanding of their enemies' weaknesses. In hidden bases around the world, human engineers worked to understand alien technology. Resistance fighters planned attacks that would seem impossible to alien military thinking. And somewhere in the wreckage of human civilization, a new kind of warfare was being born. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years by following the same successful formula. They were about to learn that formulas don't work against opponents who refuse to follow the rules. 3 months had passed since the first alien attack, and Earth looked like a different planet. Where great cities once stood, there were now craters filled with twisted metal and broken concrete. But in the ruins, something unexpected was happening. The humans were not giving up. Instead, they were getting stronger. Captain Rick Barnes crouched behind a pile of rubble that had once been a Chicago skyscraper. His uniform was torn and dirty, but his eyes were sharp and alert. He watched through his binoculars as a group of alien soldiers marched down what used to be Michigan Avenue. The gray-skinned creatures moved in perfect formation, their weapons ready, their armor gleaming in the afternoon sun. "They always use the same pattern," Barnes whispered to his second-in-command, Sergeant Lisa Park. "Same formation, same timing, same route. They never change." Park nodded. She had been a police officer before the invasion, and she understood how predictable behavior could be a weakness. "Our people are in position. We hit them in 30 seconds. The attack came from 6 different directions at once. Hidden fighters emerged from sewers, building ruins and abandoned vehicles. They used weapons that the aliens had never seen before. Improvised devices that combined human creativity with scavenged alien technology. The perfectly ordered alien formation fell apart in seconds. Barnes led his team in a quick retreat through passages. They had cut through the ruins. The aliens tried to follow, but the humans knew every hiding place, every secret path through the destroyed city. Within minutes, the resistance fighters had vanished, leaving behind 6 dead aliens and a lot of confusion. In the hidden laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Helen Ross was making discoveries that would change everything. The alien technology she had been studying was incredibly advanced, but it had a strange weakness. Every device was built to work in one specific way, and the aliens never seemed to consider that there might be other ways to use it. "Look at this power cell," she said to Dr. Alan Cooper, pointing to a glowing crystal they had taken from a crashed alien fighter. "According to their design, it should only work with their control systems, but watch this." She connected the crystal to a device that looked like it had been built in a garage, which it had. The crystal began to glow brighter, and suddenly the makeshift device was producing energy readings that should have been impossible. "You're bypassing their safety protocols," Cooper said, amazed. "They built limitations into their own technology." "Exactly. They think in straight lines. They build things to work one way and never consider alternatives. But we don't think like that. We see a tool, and we immediately start thinking of 10 different ways to use it." Their breakthrough came when they figured out how to connect human brain patterns directly to alien control systems. The aliens had designed their technology to respond to their own neural structure, but human brains were different. Where alien minds worked in logical, predictable patterns, human minds made connections that seemed impossible. The first test pilot was Air Force Lieutenant Amy Foster. She had been shot down during the initial invasion and had spent weeks hiding in the ruins of Los Angeles. When she finally made it to the hidden base, she volunteered for the dangerous experiment. "I want to fly again," she told Dr. Ross. "I want to make them pay for what they did to my squadron." The test took place in a secret facility built into an abandoned mine. The experimental aircraft looked like nothing that had ever existed before, part human engineering, part alien technology, and part pure improvisation. Foster climbed into the cockpit with no idea if the machine would work or kill her. The moment she activated the controls, something amazing happened. The alien technology responded to her thoughts in ways it had never responded to alien minds. She could feel the ship's systems as if they were part of her own body. The craft moved with a grace and speed that made alien fighters look clumsy. "It's incredible," Foster radioed to the ground. "I can think of a maneuver, and the ship just does it. It's like the machine is reading my mind and improving on my ideas." The success of the test flight changed everything. Within weeks, human engineers were building more hybrid fighters, each one better than the last. They didn't have the resources to match the Empire's numbers, but they had something else, the ability to outthink their opponents. Meanwhile, Commander Vextaler was facing a crisis that his military training had never prepared him for. His forces controlled the major cities, or what was left of them, but they couldn't control the humans. Every day brought new attacks, new losses, new evidence that these primitive creatures were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. "Report," he ordered his tactical officer. "Sir, we lost another patrol last night. The humans used some kind of explosive device hidden in a destroyed vehicle. When our soldiers investigated, it detonated. We also lost 2 fighters to what appears to be human-built aircraft. Human-built aircraft? That's impossible. They don't have the technology. So the evidence suggests they are combining our technology with their own. The result is ... unpredictable. Vex Taylor studied the reports with growing anger. In every previous conquest, the Empire had followed the same successful pattern. Destroy the major cities, eliminate the military leadership, and the population would surrender. But these humans seemed to have no central command structure to destroy. When one group was eliminated, 2 more appeared somewhere else. What about our psychological warfare programs? He asked. They're having the opposite effect, sir. When we destroy human settlements, the survivors become more determined to fight. When we broadcast surrender demands, they respond with increased attacks. Their behavior patterns don't match any of our predictive models. The truth was that the Empire's models were based on logical, hierarchical thinking. They assumed that all intelligent species would behave like the Empire itself, with clear command structures, predictable responses, and rational decision-making. But humans were different. General Paul Hayes was discovering this himself as he coordinated the resistance from his hidden command center. He had spent his career studying military doctrine, but everything he had learned was useless against the aliens. Instead, he was learning from people like Barnes, who had never been to a military academy but understood how to fight in chaos. The key is not to fight them the way they expect, Hayes told his staff during a planning meeting. They're built for large-scale warfare with clear objectives and predictable outcomes. We need to give them small-scale chaos with no clear patterns. The strategy was working. Across the planet, resistance cells were using tactics that confused and frustrated the alien forces. They would attack supply convoys using routes that made no strategic sense. They would sabotage facilities that seemed unimportant but turned out to be crucial. They would retreat when logic said they should advance, and advance when retreat seemed inevitable. The turning point came during what became known as the Battle of the Colorado Rockies. The Empire had established a major supply depot in the mountains, thinking the remote location would make it safe from human attack. They were wrong. General Hayes coordinated the assault using a combination of regular military units and civilian resistance fighters. The attack came from directions the aliens hadn't considered, using weapons they didn't understand, and following a battle plan that seemed completely irrational. Colonel Steve Adams led the ground assault with a mixed force of soldiers, police officers, construction workers, and teenagers who had lost their families in the initial bombardment. They didn't fight like a military unit, they fought like angry humans who had nothing left to lose. The aliens expected the humans to attack the main gates with conventional weapons. Instead, the humans tunneled under the facility, came down from the mountains above, and emerged from caves the aliens didn't know existed. They used improvised explosives, hybrid weapons, and tactics that would have been impossible for any other species. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the supply depot was in human hands, and the aliens had lost more equipment and personnel than in any single engagement since the war began. More importantly, the humans had captured enough alien technology to arm thousands of resistance fighters. Commander Vex Taylor finally requested reinforcements from the Empire's core worlds. His message was urgent and detailed, explaining that the humans were not behaving like any previously conquered species. The response came back within days. Complete the conquest immediately. No reinforcements will be provided for a single primitive planet. As the 4th month of occupation began, both sides prepared for the next phase of the war. The Empire remained confident that their superior technology would eventually win. The humans had something different. They had learned that their greatest weakness might actually be their greatest strength. In hidden bases around the world, human engineers continued to improve their hybrid technology. Resistance fighters planned attacks that would have seemed impossible to alien military thinking. And in the ruins of human civilization, a new kind of warfare was being born, one that would eventually challenge the Empire's 1,000-year rule over the galaxy. 6 months after the first alien attack, something impossible happened. A human-built spacecraft lifted off from a hidden base in the Nevada desert. The ship looked strange, like someone had taken alien technology and rebuilt it according to completely different rules. Its hull was a mix of human steel and alien materials, and its engines hummed with a sound that no alien ship had ever made. Commander Lisa Park sat in the pilot's seat, her hands steady on controls that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. She had been a police sergeant before the invasion, but Dr. Helen Ross had trained her to fly this hybrid vessel. The ship responded to her thoughts in ways that amazed even the scientists who had built it. "Freedom 1 to base," she radioed. "All systems are working perfectly. Beginning orbital test flight." On the ground, Dr. Ross watched the ship disappear into the sky. Her team had worked for months to build this prototype, combining human engineering with alien technology they barely understood. The fact that it worked at all was a miracle. The fact that it worked better than the original alien designs was something else entirely. "How is this possible?" asked Dr. Alan Cooper, staring at the readings on his instruments. "The ship is performing better than our models predicted." "Because we're not thinking like them," Ross replied. "We're not trying to copy their technology. We're improving it." The Empire had never faced anything like this. For 1,000 years, conquered species had either surrendered immediately or fought with their own primitive weapons until they were defeated. No one had ever taken Empire technology and made it better. The concept was so alien to their thinking that they couldn't understand what was happening. 3 battle groups had disappeared in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Admiral Kethmore, the Empire's regional commander, had sent them to investigate reports of human activity in the outer solar system. None of the ships had returned, and their last transmissions made no sense. "They reported being attacked by human vessels," Kethmore told his staff. "But humans don't have the technology to build interstellar ships." "Sir, the evidence suggests they have taken our technology and modified it," his intelligence officer replied. "The attack patterns don't match any known Empire tactics." "That's impossible. Our technology is designed to work only with our neural patterns and command structures. No primitive species could adapt it." But the humans had done exactly that. Captain Rick Barnes, now promoted to naval operations, led a fleet of hybrid ships that moved through space like nothing the Empire had ever seen. The human vessels were smaller and faster than Empire ships, and they used tactics that seemed to defy military logic. The battle group that had disappeared near Europa had been destroyed in a way that confused every Empire analyst. The human ships had attacked from multiple directions, using the ice moon's gravity well to slingshot around obstacles. They had fired weapons that combined human missiles with alien energy beams, creating explosions that damaged Empire ships in unexpected ways. "They're not fighting like a military force," Barnes explained to his pilots during a briefing aboard their hidden base on Ganymede. "They're fighting like pirates, like guerrilla fighters, like anything except what they expect us to be." His fleet included pilots from all over Earth. Lieutenant Amy Foster had trained 24 new pilots in the hybrid fighters. Sergeant Tony Martinez had become an expert at modifying alien weapons. Each human brought something different to the fight, and together they created a force that was greater than the sum of its parts. On Earth, the Resistance had transformed into something the Empire couldn't comprehend. General Paul Hayes coordinated with Resistance leaders across all continents. Captain Maria Santos led forces in South America, using jungle warfare tactics that completely baffled the alien ground troops. Major Ben Taylor had organized African resistance groups that attacked Empire supply lines with devastating effectiveness. Commander Sue Johnson coordinated Asian resistance cells that used ancient military strategies combined with modern technology. The Empire's response was to send Admiral Kethmore with a massive battle fleet. 50 ships, including 3 dreadnoughts, approached Earth with orders to crush human resistance through overwhelming force. The Empire's leaders still believed that superior firepower could solve any problem. They were wrong. The humans didn't meet them in open space battle. Instead, they used the entire solar system as their battlefield. Hidden bases on asteroids launched surprise attacks. Ships emerged from behind Jupiter's moons to strike at Empire supply vessels. Human fighters used the solar system's gravity, wells and radiation fields as weapons. Dr. Ross had made another crucial discovery while studying captured alien technology. The Empire's success came from their ability to think in large, organized patterns. Their military doctrine, their technology, even their society was built on the idea that bigger and more organized always won. But human creativity worked differently. Look. At this, she showed Cooper, pointing to a diagram of Empire command structure. Every decision flows up through a hierarchy. Every response follows a predetermined pattern. They're incredibly efficient, but they can't adapt to chaos. And we thrive in chaos, Cooper said, understanding immediately. Exactly. We don't need to beat them at their own game. We need to change the game entirely. The breakthrough came when humans successfully captured an intact Empire command ship during the Battle of Mars. Colonel Steve Adams had led a boarding party that fought their way through the ship's corridors. Using close combat tactics that the alien crew couldn't counter, the aliens were physically larger and stronger than humans, but humans were faster and more unpredictable. Adams and his team moved through the ship like they were clearing a building in urban warfare, using techniques that had been developed in Earth cities and adapted for spacecraft. They fight like they're following a manual, Adams reported to his team. Every move is predictable once you understand their pattern. The capture of the command ship gave humans access to Empire intelligence that revealed the true scope of their enemy. The Empire controlled nearly 1,000 worlds, with fleets that numbered in the millions of ships. The humans were vastly outnumbered, but they now understood something crucial about their enemy. They're not just technologically superior, Doctor. Ross explained to President Jake Morrison during a secure communication from the Hidden Earth government. They're mentally limited. Their entire civilization is built on the idea that there's one right way to do everything. What does that mean for us? Morrison asked. It means we don't have to match their numbers or their technology. We just have to keep being unpredictable. The Empire's attempts to counter human tactics failed because they kept trying to apply logical solutions to illogical problems. When humans attacked supply lines, the Empire increased security in predictable ways. When humans used guerrilla tactics, the Empire responded with conventional military doctrine. Every Empire response was met with human adaptation that made the situation worse for the aliens. The turning point came when human forces successfully defended the Mars colonies against a full Empire assault. The battle lasted 4 days, with human defenders using the planet's geography, atmosphere, and industrial facilities as weapons. They turned mining equipment into artillery, used dust storms as cover, and fought with a ferocity that stunned the Empire forces. Admiral Kethmer watched his fleet take casualties at an unprecedented rate. His ships were more advanced, his weapons more powerful, but the humans kept doing things that his tactical computers couldn't predict or counter. Sir, the humans are using the planet's magnetic field to disrupt our targeting systems, his weapons officer reported. They're also launching attacks from underground tunnels that don't appear on any of our maps. How can they have tunnels we don't know about? Kethmer demanded. Sir, they're not using existing tunnels. They're creating new ones as they fight. They're literally reshaping the battlefield during combat. The Empire had never faced an enemy that could adapt so quickly. Other species fought with the resources they had when the battle began. Humans created new resources and new tactics while fighting. They turned every disadvantage into an advantage and every defeat into a learning experience. As the Mars battle ended in Empire retreat, both sides prepared for the next phase of the war. The Empire still held overwhelming numerical superiority, but they were beginning to understand that numbers might not be enough. The humans had shown that creativity and adaptability could overcome superior technology. In hidden bases throughout the solar system, human engineers worked on new weapons and new ships. Resistance fighters planned attacks that would have seemed impossible to alien military thinking. And in the ruins and hidden places of human civilization, a new kind of warfare continued to evolve, The Empire ruled the galaxy through superior technology and overwhelming force. But they had never faced opponents who could take that technology and make it better, who could turn weakness into strength, and who seemed to grow more dangerous with every defeat. The war was far from over, but for the first time since the invasion the Empire was beginning to doubt their inevitable victory. The decision that shocked the galaxy came during an emergency meeting in the hidden bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains. President Jake Morrison stood before a group of military leaders, scientists, and resistance fighters who had been fighting for their lives for 8 months. The holographic display showed star maps that stretched far beyond Earth's solar system. "We're going to take the fight to them," Morrison announced. "We're going to attack their homeworlds." The room fell silent. General Paul Hayes was the first to speak. "Sir, with respect, we're still defending our own planet. How can we possibly attack an empire that spans hundreds of worlds?" "Because that's exactly what they won't expect," Morrison replied. "They think we're a primitive species that can barely defend itself. They'll never imagine that we would dare to attack them." Dr. Helen Ross stepped forward with a datapad in her hands. "The intelligence we gathered from the captured command ship shows us their weaknesses. The Empire is built on the assumption that they are always the attackers. Their homeworlds have minimal defenses because they never expected anyone to reach them." Admiral Helen Ross, promoted from her research position to lead the new human space fleet, studied the star charts. "We have 17 operational ships, and we're building more every day. It's not much against an empire, but it might be enough to prove a point." The first target was the Empire's regional capital at Proxima Centauri. The system contained 3 worlds with a combined population of over 2 billion aliens. It was defended by a fleet of 30 ships and orbital defense platforms that could destroy anything the Empire had ever faced before, but they had never faced humans. Captain Steve Adams now commanded the flagship Enterprise, a vessel that looked like no other ship in the galaxy. Its hull was a mix of human steel and alien materials, shaped according to human engineering principles but powered by improved alien technology. The weapon systems had been redesigned by human engineers who thought about warfare in completely different ways. "Remember," Admiral Ross told her fleet commanders during their final briefing, "we're not trying to conquer this system. We're trying to send a message. Hit hard, hit fast, and get out before they can organize a response." The human fleet approached Proxima Centauri using a route that no Empire tactician would have considered. Instead of coming through normal space, they used the gravity wells of dead stars to slingshot across interstellar distances. They approached from the direction of the galactic core, where no enemy was expected to come from. Lieutenant Amy Foster led the fighter squadrons in ships that moved like nothing the Empire had ever seen. The human fighters were smaller and faster than Empire vessels, but more importantly, they were unpredictable. Each pilot had been trained to think creatively, to adapt to changing situations, and to use tactics that would confuse enemy computers. The attack began at dawn on the main Empire world. Human ships emerged from behind the system's star, using the solar radiation to mask their approach. They struck the orbital defense platforms first, using weapons that combined human engineering with alien technology in ways that shouldn't have worked but did. Commander Tony Martinez led the electronic warfare team that disabled the Empire's communication systems. His team had learned to hack alien computers by thinking about them in human terms. Where the Empire saw secure systems, humans saw puzzles to be solved. Their security is based on the assumption that only Empire technology can access Empire systems, Martinez explained to his team. But we're not using Empire technology. We're using human logic applied to alien hardware. The ground assault was led by Colonel Adams and a force of human Marines who had trained for months in zero-gravity combat. They landed on the main Empire world using tactics that had been developed in Earth's urban warfare. Adapted for alien cities and alien opponents, the Empire defenders were completely unprepared. Their entire military doctrine was based on fighting other organized military forces. They had never faced opponents who could switch between conventional tactics and guerrilla warfare in the middle of a battle. They're everywhere and nowhere, the local Empire commander reported to his superiors. They attack our command centers, then disappear into the civilian population. They use our own infrastructure against us. The battle lasted only 18 hours, but its impact was felt across the galaxy. For the first time in over 1,000 years, an Empire core world had been successfully attacked. The humans didn't try to hold the territory. Instead, they broadcast a message to every world in the Empire. "This is Admiral Helen Ross of the Human Fleet," the message began. "We are not conquerors, we are not seeking to rule your worlds. But we will defend ourselves and we will strike back against anyone who threatens our people. The Empire attacked us thinking we were weak and primitive. Today we have proven them wrong." The message was heard on nearly 1,000 worlds, many of them species that had been conquered by the Empire decades or centuries ago. For the first time, these conquered people saw that the Empire could be defeated. The Empire's response was swift and massive. Supreme Admiral Zarkith mobilized the largest fleet in galactic history. Over 300 ships, including the Empire's most powerful dreadnoughts, began moving toward human space. The message was clear: humanity would be crushed with overwhelming force, but the humans had learned something important from their success at Proxima Centauri. They didn't have to fight the Empire's fleet in open battle. They could use the Empire's size and organizational structure against them. Captain Rick Barnes led a series of raids on Empire supply lines. His ships would strike at cargo convoys, steal what they needed, and disappear before Empire reinforcements could arrive. Each raid was planned to hit targets that seemed unimportant but were actually crucial to Empire operations. "They're not just stealing supplies," Admiral Kethmore reported to his superiors. "They're studying our logistics, learning how we move resources and personnel. They're treating our entire supply network like a target." The human raids were successful because they followed no predictable pattern. Empire computers tried to calculate where the next attack would come from, but human creativity made prediction impossible. The humans would strike at a fuel depot, then attack a communication relay, then hit a transport of food supplies. Each target made sense only in the context of human planning. Dr. Alan Cooper had become the chief engineer of the human fleet, designing weapons and ships that confused Empire analysts. His latest creation was a weapon that used Empire energy technology but fired human-designed projectiles. The result was a weapon that could penetrate Empire shields because it worked on principles that Empire defenses weren't designed to stop. "The key is not to build better weapons," Cooper explained to his engineering team. "The key is to build different weapons. Weapons that work in ways they never expect." The human fleet grew stronger with each battle. Every encounter with Empire forces taught them something new, and they adapted faster than their enemies could respond. Ships that were damaged in one battle would be repaired and upgraded before the next one, incorporating lessons learned from combat. The Empire's greatest advantage, their superior numbers, became a disadvantage when fighting humans. Empire fleets were designed to work together in large, coordinated groups. Human fleets were designed to work independently, with each ship capable of acting alone or in small groups. "They're not fighting like a military force," Admiral Kethmore told his staff after losing another battle to human raiders. "They're fighting like pirates, like bandits, like anything except what our doctrine is designed to counter." The turning point came when human forces successfully defended the Saturn system against a full Empire assault. The battle involved over 100 ships on each side, but the humans used the planet's rings and moons as weapons, turning the entire system into a battlefield. The Empire fleet found itself fighting not just human ships, but the environment itself. Human engineers had turned Saturn's rings into a maze of weapons and obstacles. They had hidden bases in the planet's moons and used the gravitational fields as tactical advantages. When the battle ended, the Empire fleet had lost over 60 ships while the humans had lost only 12. More importantly, the humans had captured enough Empire technology to build an entire new fleet. As news of the victory spread across the galaxy, other species began to take notice. The Empire's conquest of humanity was supposed to be a simple operation, completed in days. Instead, it had become a war that was spreading across multiple star systems and inspiring resistance movements on conquered worlds. The Empire still held overwhelming numerical superiority, but they were beginning to understand that numbers alone might not be enough. The humans had shown that creativity, adaptability, and the willingness to fight unconventionally could overcome superior technology and organization. In hidden bases throughout human space, engineers worked on new weapons and new ships. Military leaders planned attacks that would have seemed impossible to Empire thinking, and across the galaxy, conquered species watched and waited, wondering if the impossible might actually be possible. The war had become something that neither side had expected when it began. The Empire had thought they were conquering a primitive planet. The humans had thought they were defending their homeworld. The largest space battle in Galactic history began at dawn on the Empire's capital world of Zenther Prime. Admiral Helen Ross stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching as hundreds of ships positioned themselves for the final assault. The human fleet had grown from 17 vessels to over 200, each one a unique combination of human creativity and alien technology. "All ships report ready," Captain Steve Adams announced from his position at the tactical station. The Enterprise had been rebuilt 3 times during the war, and each version was better than the last. Its weapons could punch through Empire shields, its engines could outrun Empire interceptors, and its defenses could withstand attacks that would destroy conventional ships. The Empire's home fleet was massive beyond imagination, over 800. Ships surrounded Zenther Prime, including the largest dreadnoughts ever built. The planet itself was protected by orbital defense platforms that could destroy entire fleets. By every measure of military power, the humans should have been annihilated in minutes, but Admiral Ross had learned something important during the past year of warfare. Military power wasn't just about numbers or technology. It was about how you used what you had, and humans had become very good at using everything in ways their enemies never expected. "Remember," she told her fleet commanders, "we're not trying to match their firepower. We're trying to create chaos. Every Empire ship that's fighting another Empire ship is a victory for us." The battle began when human fighters, led by Lieutenant Amy Foster, penetrated the Empire's outer defenses using tactics that seemed suicidal but worked perfectly. The small human craft moved between the large Empire ships like insects, too small and fast to target effectively but carrying weapons that could damage critical systems. Foster's fighters had been modified with technology that Dr. Alan Cooper had developed specifically for this battle. Each ship carried devices that could hack into Empire systems and turn their own weapons against them. Within the first hour of combat, 6 Empire ships had been destroyed by their own defensive systems. "This is impossible," Supreme Admiral Zarketh said from this command ship, watching his fleet tear itself apart. "Our computers are reporting that our own ships are attacking us." "Sir, the humans have found a way to penetrate our command networks," his technical officer replied. "They're using our own communication systems to spread false orders and override our control systems." Commander Tony Martinez was leading the electronic warfare assault from a ship that looked more like a flying computer than a warship. His team had spent months studying Empire communication protocols, and they had discovered something the Empire never suspected. Their entire fleet was designed to work as one unit, with ships sharing information and coordinating through a central network. "They built their greatest strength on their greatest weakness," Martinez explained to his team as they worked. "Their ships are so connected that if you can hack one, you can hack them all." The ground assault on Zenther Prime was led by Colonel Adams and an army that included soldiers from every resistance cell on Earth. They had trained for months in tactics that combined human urban warfare with alien technology. More importantly, they had learned to fight in ways that confused and terrified their enemies. The Empire's ground forces were unprepared for opponents who could switch between conventional military tactics and guerrilla warfare in the middle of a battle. Human soldiers would attack in formation like a regular army, then suddenly scatter into small groups that struck from unexpected directions. "They're not following any recognizable pattern," the local Empire commander reported to his superiors. "They attack our strongest points with their weakest forces, then use their main strength against targets that seem unimportant." Captain Maria Santos led her South American fighters in an assault on the Empire's planetary command center. Her team moved through the alien city like they were fighting in the jungles of Earth, using every piece of cover and every tactical advantage they could find. The Empire defenders had superior weapons and better armor, but they couldn't adapt to the chaos that humans created wherever they fought. Every battle became a dozen smaller battles. Each one fought according to different rules. Major Ben Taylor coordinated attacks on Empire supply lines that stretched across the planet. His African fighters had learned to live off the land during the Earth resistance, and they applied those same skills to alien terrain. They could survive and fight in conditions that would stop Empire forces completely. The turning point came when Dr. Helen Ross led a team of scientists and engineers to the planet's main computer core. The Empire's entire civilization was built on computerized systems that managed everything from communications to life support. If those systems could be captured or controlled, the war would be over. "Their technology is incredibly advanced," Ross explained to her team as they worked their way through the heavily defended facility, "but it's also incredibly centralized. They put all their eggs in one basket because they never imagined that anyone could reach the basket." The computer core was protected by security systems that should have been impossible to penetrate. But human engineers had learned to think about alien technology in human terms. Where the Empire saw impenetrable defenses, humans saw puzzles to be solved. Commander Sue Johnson led the team that actually reached the core computer. Her Asian fighters had specialized in electronic warfare during the Earth resistance, and they had become experts at making alien technology do things it was never designed to do. "We don't need to understand how it works," Johnson told her team. "We just need to make it work for us instead of them." The battle for the computer core lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the humans had gained access to the Empire's entire information network. More importantly, they had learned something that changed everything. The Empire wasn't as powerful as it seemed. Their control over the galaxy was based more on fear and reputation than on actual military strength. Most of their conquered worlds were defended by skeleton forces because the Empire had never faced serious resistance before. "Look at this." Ross showed Admiral Ross the data they had captured. "They have nearly 1,000 worlds, but most of them are defended by fewer than 100 soldiers. They've been ruling through intimidation, not through force." The revelation changed the nature of the war immediately. Within hours, human ships were broadcasting the captured information to every world in the Empire. Conquered species that had lived under Empire rule for centuries suddenly learned that their oppressors were not as invincible as they had seemed. Rebellions began on dozens of worlds within days. Species that had been conquered generations ago suddenly remembered what freedom felt like. The Empire's forces, already stretched thin by the war with humanity, couldn't respond to multiple uprisings across the galaxy. Supreme Admiral Zarkith faced a choice that no Empire leader had ever confronted. He could continue fighting a war that was spreading across the galaxy, or he could try to salvage what remained of the Empire. Through negotiation, the surrender ceremony took place aboard the human flagship Enterprise. President Jake Morrison accepted the Empire's surrender in a brief ceremony that was broadcast across the galaxy. The terms were simple. The Empire would recognize human sovereignty, release all conquered worlds that wanted independence, and establish formal diplomatic relations with the new galactic order. "We didn't come here to conquer," Morrison said during the ceremony. "We came here to defend ourselves. But we've learned that sometimes the best defense is to make sure that everyone in the galaxy has the right to defend themselves." The aftermath of the war created a galaxy that was completely different from what had existed before. The rigid Empire hierarchy was replaced by a loose confederation of independent worlds. Species that had been enemies for centuries began working together on projects that benefited everyone. Dr. Helen Ross became Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Council, helping to establish peaceful relationships between humanity and the hundreds of species that made up galactic civilization. Her work focused on sharing human problem-solving techniques with other species, showing them that creativity and adaptability were tools that everyone could use. The war had taught the galaxy an important lesson. Military power wasn't just about having the biggest weapons or the most ships. It was about being able to adapt, to think creatively, and to find solutions that no one had considered before human exploration ships began leaving Earth regularly, not as conquerors but as partners in the great work of understanding the galaxy. They carried with them the lesson that had won the war. Diversity of thought and adaptability were the greatest weapons in the universe. The Empire's warning to other species had become prophetic in a way they never intended. When humans were threatened, the wisest course wasn't to fight them, but to find ways to work with them. Because humans didn't just solve their own problems, they helped others solve theirs too. Years later, when young beings across the galaxy learned about the war, they would remember it not as the time when humans defeated the Empire, but as the time when the galaxy learned that there was always another way to solve any problem. Sometimes that way was found through creativity, sometimes through cooperation.